Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started now. This will kind of be like our first podcast officially to kind of just be a weekly, maybe bi-weekly thing, and just kind of update you guys on our progress as we work on the game. A nice little way to kind of engage with our community. Then based off of that, we'll just see how it goes from there. So right off the bat, what I wanted to do was take the time to kind of introduce everyone that is here and let them talk a little bit about themselves. And then from there, jump straight into it in terms of what we've been doing this week. Maybe take a couple of questions here and there. And then the last thing that we'll cover will be basically just kind of like more so of a roundtable discussion on the team and with people in the chat of our inspirations for Cepheus Protocol, where we got the idea for it, games, movies, comics, like geeking out, essentially, in terms of where, yeah. So to jump right into it, we're going to start all the way from the far left. Ashley, do you want to introduce yourself and give them a little bit of insight on you?
Sure thing. Hi guys, thank you for joining the stream. So my name's Ashley Urquhart. I live in Ontario, Canada. I'm the art director here at Halcyon Wind Studios. I've been with the team basically since the beginning when we were all sitting around in a Discord room trying to figure out what type of game we were going to make. And that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Well, now.
All right, Chris,
Well.
you want to go?
The Madam of Mystery, I suppose.
Right.
Hi, I'm Christopher Buckner. I'm the lead writer and game designer for Cepheus Protocol. I've been with Halcyon Winds since the beginning as well. I've been working in game development for, going on close to 18 years now for multiple indie studios. But Halcyon Winds has been the best one I've ever worked with. And yeah, I'm basically the one in charge of, telling a terrifying story and killing a lot of people.
What a great time.
Yep, totally fun.
All right, Efren, you have the floor.
How's it going, everyone? My name's Efren Silva. I'm level designer for Halcyon Winds. Been working with the team since about 2017. Always wanted to get into games, went to school for it. Always been meddling around in 3D. Before I got to this team, I bounced around with a lot of independent artists, between teams trying to get things off the ground. Unfortunately, a lot of undisciplined people. Some projects didn't even get off the ground, and when I landed with these guys, it was a good. I saw they were pretty serious. They took everything pretty serious. They did work. They got things done, and they had a system in place that made sure everybody pitched in and did their part, and they've never disappointed, man. I mean, this is the first game I've ever been able to release, even in early access, and it feels great. And I'm looking forward to doing a lot more work with them. That's it.
Awesome. Michael, want to introduce yourself?
All right. My name is Justin, Michael, Hayuka, whatever you want to call me. Let's see. I joined the team about a year ago. Past experience. Let's see. I worked at Ubisoft for a little bit. So if you ever play Division and Close a Car Door, you're welcome. Let's see. Got into game design. I'd say back when I was about 14. I did a little bit of animation, some modeling here and there, and decided that I wanted to pursue it. So I went to Full Sail University, picked up an internship, and landed a nice solid job for a few years. It's pretty good. And when I left, I took a little break and, was talking to Robert, and I was like, sure, why not? I'll get back in the groove of things. So here I am.
A little bit of history there. I've known Michael for 10 years, easy. 10, 15 years. So, but yeah, my name's Robert. I'm the game director, studio director. I do programming. I kind of dabble in everything. I don't have really that much formal teaching. I kind of taught myself. And this has kind of just been something where I originally wanted to be a game director. I was going to go to film school for it. And then I played Metal Gear Solid 3 at that point, and I just kind of noticed the potential for games and the interactive medium and all that. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to film school anymore. I think I just want to sit here on YouTube and go at it and figure out just how to make games and that's been it. I mean, you figure at that point, and then along that way, we picked up all this great talent, people in the room. It wasn't easy, when it came down to it, in terms of basically the road we've had to take the last 2 years. But it's definitely it's going, it's getting there slowly but surely. Scott, do you want to go?
There's nobody else to go. I'm Scott Weber. I've been with the team for, I think, 4 months now. I was brought on as a concept artist. I've known Robert for, I suppose, almost 7 or 8 years. We worked on an old project together previously, way back when. And then I went off and did freelance work, and I've been at studios. Like, I live out here in Colorado. They have a small little studio called Direwolf Studios that I did some work for. We did a contract with the Elder Scrolls Legends card game. And then from there, it was just lots of commission work. And then I've done some stuff for Ubisoft. And then now I'm here with these guys. And I think that might... Does that feel good? Do you guys feel like you know me because I said all that?
I know you so much better now.
Yeah.
I didn't even say what I did.
He didn't say what he did. I just gave a quick little synopsis. I didn't want to go into story time too badly.
Yeah, just very brief touches of the high points, I guess, of the career.
Yeah. So I guess right off the bat, obviously we'll talk a little bit more about our inspirations in the game when we get into the last segment. But we'll move into the next area, which is basically kind of like the week in review of just kind of like, what did we do this week? Like, what was going on? What are we thinking of? Things that we're planning for? And just X, Y, and Z. So I guess I'll kind of open the floor up for anyone that just kind of wants to throw their what they did over the weekend, and then I'll kind of direct it. People start to get quiet. So, anyone want to go first?
Me.
All you.
So this past week, obviously, been working on the 1P. We got a bunch of stuff working because we plan on adding the pistol. Surprise, surprise. I don't think we mentioned that or announced a sidearm. So been working on getting that situated, finished the model, did a little bit of texturing, had a few hiccups here and there, still trying to figure out a few things. It's going pretty smoothly though, so everyone should be excited for Halloween. It's been a little crazy, but not too crazy, so,
Yeah, and I've been drawing stuff for Anthology, and that's there, and that. Yeah, there you go. I draw lots of pictures so I can help you guys understand Christopher's novelization. I guess I've seen it, huh? I don't know what speaks specifically to individual images or just
No, like what's
what's
your style? Like,
oh,
or why are you drawing it that way and all that?
it just felt so good to draw that. No, I was one of my biggest inspirations has been Yoji Shinkawa because I'm also a big Metal Gear fanboy. And yeah, and like him and back in like what? I forget when Portable Ops came out. I think it was 2008. Him and Ashley Wood worked together to create the cutscenes for that. So I borrow a lot of sometimes, and at least not in the work that I'm currently doing. It's still very standard, not as loose as a Shinkawa sort of art. So it's landing somewhere in between an Ashley Wood and a Yoji Shinkawa design. Has a lot of Ashley Wood's kind of color palette. And it's nice and loose and harsh looking, which I guess is pretty fitting for the narrative. Wouldn't we say?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, Chris, why don't you talk about some of the stuff that you've been working on, while I just kind of show some examples of what Scott's talking about.
Well, beyond you and I doing a lot of meetings this week about stuff we can't quite reveal, but hopefully we can soon. I've been taking the novel that I wrote for Cepheus Protocol and breaking it down, similar to like you would do a comic book script. And so that way Scott knows how many scenes to draw within each chapter and basic descriptions of what I want to see and then what he wants to put in there. I think we've kind of hit a good like flow right now.
Mm.
I mean, Scott's really easy to work with and he has, really creative and imaginative when it comes to like plotting out scenes and camera angles. So I don't have to be overly descriptive, which is always kind of nice. And other than that, just been doing some preliminary work on for the campaign, just more like brainstorming where I want that to go. And yeah, it's not too much for me to do on the core game at this moment, but that's going to be changing in the next few months.
Yeah, because right now we're starting to actually do a lot of the legwork of like figuring out like the mocap. You know, we have a suit coming in the mail. We're gonna use that for gameplay right off the bat for the civilians, for the civilian management system, and then from there it'll kind of let us understand more of the tech, so we can, you know, use it more in terms of like cutscenes and some of the stuff that we plan to do for the actual campaign. And I guess slowly but surely, towards the end of this year, going into next, we'll start to ramp up that. And then that'll kind of go into like some of the stuff that we've been talking to Scott about, that we'll kind of drop some hints to of the faction that we want to work on, what we're going to be working on. That's in the book, but they're not really like, they don't really have that very much of a presence there in terms of like, they're more of like the shadowy like group, the third group that you don't really know what they're there and their motivations are. And then Ashley, well, I guess you can't really talk about what you've been working on, because that was a surprise, huh?
I could say that this week we've been working on redesigning the CERC units. And I just wanted to say, yeah, we do love all of the feedback that you guys are leaving in the CERC units channel and Discord. I'm always looking at it, so I'm definitely looking at everything you guys say, and it's like perfect advice that you guys are leaving. And hopefully we should have a new engineer concept for you guys to take a look at soon. We've also been working on some early designs for the CERC guard towers, which I believe Robert posted in announcements or update channel, not sure which.
Yeah, I'm showing some examples right now on screen.
Oh, perfect.
Of the units.
Real quickly, you broke the icons on the bottom.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, he did.
Oops, hold on.
Also, we've been working on the main menu, so we're getting all the different screens that we're going to need for that. And creating a new intro video. So I don't know if you can show that, Robert.
Yes, I can pull that up. Let me pull that up for them. Bear with me a moment. Let me download that from the channel. Let's see, just a moment.
Why don't you tell everybody who does those artworks for the different units?
Oh, yeah, why don't you talk about him a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Gia Ruan, he's like amazing. He does all these. I just love his style. It's like not like generic soldiers. It's more interesting. And Roy Gagne is working on the intro video. Juniority and myself are working on the main menu.
You reading off a list? There's a long pause.
Yeah, so how about them
It's
Knicks?
so obvious about that list. It's just like, I got a list right here. Hold on. No.
Actually, not for this one, but unlike that question was unexpected. Hold on. I didn't have it written down yet.
Yeah.
Get it together, Ashley.
Yeah, but we are. I want to mention but we are playing around with like guard towers, like, you know, like, 'cause I know that's been just to kind of throw that in there officially, because we've only talked about it on the Discord here and there, is that we are trying to get some designs finalized so you guys can actually plaster down a guard tower, and you can garrison someone in it, anyone, soldier, like, you know, a sniper, assault, heavy. And then it'll fall back more on the traditional company of heroes type of way that they do it, where it won't rely on their peripherals, like their hearing and their seeing. It'll just be like company heroes, where if you enter that bubble, then they'll know that person's there, and they'll just react and shoot at them. And you'll have like different levels of it. So you'll have like a light one, a medium one, and a heavy one. And the medium one, we're thinking about making it mobile, so you can pack it up and you can remove that guard tower around. We're thinking about a light one, which is basically like a light scout tower that's not meant to take that many hits. It's more so you build it out, maybe on top of buildings. You build it out like really far out to basically like set up like a scout, like a nest, just to kind of see what's going on in some parts of the map. But it's the lightest of them all. And then the heavy one, which is like ones you could build like theoretically at civilian management centers, you know, anywhere where you want to be able to man a team of like 4 to 6 guys, basically. We're thinking 4 initially, and at this point, we're just trying to get that concept in. So I'll throw that out there as well, because we posted some examples on our Discord of the guard tower, but we're still working through the paces to kind of get it finalized and get something a little bit more unique that kind of makes it our own design, instead of being too close to the real world versions that are out there that are patented. But yeah, other than that, I don't know, Ashley, is there anything else you want to throw out there before we move to Efren for level design?
No, that was it for me.
All right. Efren, why don't you sum up some of the work you've been doing on the levels?
Majority of the work I've been doing lately is doing a replay or overhaul of the roads on the island, pretty much the entire island, because the new roads we're putting in, we tested different looks. We had a super wide set that a lot of people didn't like, and people within the team didn't like, and even I kind of was like, so it was pretty unanimous. We redid those, and we kind of settled for doing, different size roads, like some people had mentioned, like we have 2-lane roads, we have 3-lane roads, 4-lane roads. I think the highest one we have right now is 6. But, most of what you'll see in the game are like 2-lane, 4-lane at time. Very rarely 6-lane, because there aren't really a lot of big roads going through that part of town. And the aim is pretty much to give players more room to build within the inner cities, or in many of the areas that were before pretty compact. You couldn't really build in there because a lot of them were pretty much death traps. I mean, if you went in there and you went in too deep, made a mistake, I mean, your team would get chewed up no matter what you went in with. And a lot of it was very close quarter fighting. Wasn't a lot of room to move around or, get your people into a position where they can fight effectively. And now it's going to be a lot better. Like, there's going to be a lot more open space between the buildings. You're going to be able to base build in areas where you couldn't base build before. I'm trying to do a better job of opening a lot of these spaces up. I know there's one thing is that they want less assets on the map, and there was also concern in the public Discord about people saying, "Oh, we don't want it to look like a wasteland." It's like, well, it's not going to look like a wasteland. We're going to fill in that dead space. We just want to make more room for you guys to be able to use 100% of the map, as opposed to like most people. I mean, even I, as a player playing the game, would mostly build like on Alcatraz or Angel Island somewhere, and then the southern part of Treasure Island, which were like, I think, the easiest areas to build and take off from. I rarely ventured into places like grids 5 and 6, grids 3. 1 and 2 weren't such a problem, but they still needed a little bit of a change because, of course, most of the main island's going to change. So I'm really liking where it's going. I think there's going to be a lot more room for players to enjoy base building within the cities and really holding, certain areas off, and being able to venture in deep and not have to, find yourself retreating a force of like, I don't know, 20, 30 units because you're still getting chewed up because the spaces are too small and everybody's just kind of running over everybody. Apart from that, redoing a lot of the buildings in the area. I've held off on that until I finish all the road overhaul or the island overhaul. Presidial's also getting a facelift. Apart from that, there's also the spawn system. I've also been doing some of the placement of the new blight growth that's supposed to be spreading out from the infection pods. I've been testing it on grid 1 right now. What I've been doing to the other grids is mainly hooking up the infection pods, testing them, making sure they're working. Had a little hiccup today because last night I edited some of the borders in some sections, re-imported, and I forgot that the build locations need collisions. So I wasn't able to build the base, but at least the spawn system is working.
So what, you build a structure and it would fall through the floor?
No, I haven't had that problem.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Structures, I mean, well, yeah, the units will fall to the floor because, oops, I didn't run the nav build. But the issue with the spawn system was that I wasn't able to build. I couldn't deploy the truck, and it was because I forgot to. Well, I didn't forget. I intentionally took out the collisions because I didn't think we would need them. And it's been
Okay.
like maybe a few months since the last time I worked with the spawn system, so I forgot that little detail. But yeah, so far everything's working pretty good. Uh, the only thing left to do is just clean up the island, make it look pretty, and start putting in those new spawn features. Or finish putting them in, because I'm pretty much just familiarizing myself with the new system. It's kind of complicated, but it's easy to pick up. And as far as putting all that stuff in there, the blight's really fun to put in. I don't know if you've looked at grid 1. I don't know how crazy I can go with it, so I'm gonna go as far as I think is. Oh, okay.
So
Well, good. That's all right.
yeah,
Right now I've just been putting it all over the floor, kind of spreading from spot to spot. And if there's like adjacent structures, I'll put some of the stuff on there. I guess what I've done so far would be like a mid-range. Maybe I could go higher. We could test it. I mean, so far on my end, I'm not getting any like frame rate drop or lagging out when I'm going into that area, and it works pretty good. It looks pretty cool when you shoot it down and burn it, and it starts to like decay away.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, Dimitri put a lot of time into that effect. Where basically, like, the idea is that when you destroy a building, or not, rather, when you kill the infection that is taking root in some of these buildings and the structures in general, it doesn't just immediately disappear anymore. It'll actually like wither and die, and then it'll slowly but surely fade out, or kind of like do this crisping kind of like dissolve effect. And it's very cool. Because then that way you'll see it like slowly recede from a zone. If you kill a key location, it won't just like immediately disappear. It'll be like it'll die, and then it'll just wither away and just kind of like float off with the wind. So that's something that Dimitri was pretty proud of, to essentially just kind of get that in there from an aesthetic standpoint. And then for myself, of course, I've been working with Michael to basically work on the 1P, flesh it out, work with the Patreons to basically playtest it, the scribes to playtest it, some private people that I've sent it to, getting feedback. We have a whole list of things that we got to fix for me and Michael next week, just to make sure that 1P is where it needs to be for when we let people publicly play it, sometime in the last week of October before Halloween. I'm just kind of polishing up like small little bugs here and there. Let's see what else. Like Michael said, we added a 1P pistol. We added a melee. You figure we're kind of playing around with the dynamics and making sure that when you're actually shooting, you move. Everything is kind of like it's the right screen space. So we're looking a lot at like Battlefield and Call of Duty and a bunch of other games like Insurgency, that just kind of get a gauge of like how we measure, what are we measuring it against in terms of our quality metrics. That's why you'll probably see me and Michael in that like just randomly every couple of days, like Battlefield, Call of Duty on our playlist, because we're recording references, we're talking about it, we're saying like we're looking at SDKs and how they do it, and we're just trying to make sure that what we do make is the best possible quality, and we're able to make people have fun. That's what matters most at the end of the day. And we are, just to kind of wrap up this section and segue into the third and last segment, which is the origins of Cepheus Protocol. And we are basically working on a tutorial. It's one of the last things that we're going to show for the 1P. The idea is that if it's received well and people like that direction of tutorial, then we're going to expand on it, and it's going to basically become like a one-off series of tutorials that are their own separate map, that are ideally going to be taking place on Alcatraz Island, that'll teach you the mechanics of the RTS. Right now, we're going to just test it, and we're going to make our own custom kill house, similar to kind of like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4, where it was like a little like testing range. We're going to play around with that somewhere on Alcatraz, where the idea is that the operators that are coming to the island, your operator, that's new to the island is going there to be trained, quote unquote. And like essentially like that's just like your little playground to kind of like learn how do you customize your weapon, how do you switch between RTS and first person, how do you reload, which is obvious, but some people haven't played a first person shooter or know the controls or any number of things. So we're making sure it's all spelled out and it's pretty straightforward, so they know. So then that way everything is just kind of like pretty straightforward. And then again, we'll carry it over to RTS if people like the direction we go in. Okay, so to wrap it up from there, we're gonna go ahead. Is there anything else anyone wants to mention before we move on to the next section? No? Okay.
No.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the origins of Zephyrus Protocol, and I guess right off the bat, we're gonna be talking a lot about the story, the characters, the inspiration behind the art, the X, Y, and Z of just kind of like the geeking out part of this conversation of like maybe some shows you guys might have heard of, maybe some shows you guys haven't heard of. So let's have Chris start. So Chris, tell us what inspired you to develop the world of Zephyrus Protocol.
Care Bears and My Little Pony.
Totally, I completely agree.
Well, originally came off of your ideal of doing a zombie-esque type outbreak storyline, and you and I both agreed that one thing that almost all zombie-ish stories have in common is always set after the infection where the government's already collapsed, and it's like we always want to know like why did the government collapse? How did the infection start? Show it more from the military point of view and less of just like the Rick like role that's out there. And I was initially inspired by the novel of World War Z. Which I use as the basis for the novel that I wrote for Cepheus Protocol, because in that book it shifts from different perspectives and gives a wider view of that outbreak. So for Cepheus, we modeled basically after that, where we would have different perspectives, but focusing around an overall narrative of it. And so we wanted Cepheus to build off of like the concept of days, like the game begins on day one, and it's ultimately the first arc will be 7 days, and then you eventually see as the CERC loses control, how the virus starts to mutate and spread and continue on. As there are other inspirations, I mean, there's a lot. Really, there was Robert forced me to watch The Last Ship, which I really didn't like at first.
You liked it after you got into it.
Yeah,
it was cheesy.
Yeah, the pilot is just unbearably bad. I don't know why the Russians are using a Jolly Green Giants to attack helicopters. It's just silly. But then they got really good, and so like I brought a lot of ideals of The Last Ship, even ripped off some of the characters. Other like out there ideals was actually Band of Brothers. I mean, one of the little Easter eggs is like we have a ton of characters that are named after Band of Brother, characters.
We got a Prakanti.
No Prakanti yet.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the main character Winter is based off of the Winters in Band of Brother. We got Lipton and
Malarkey.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, like me and Robert love Band of Brothers. I've seen Band of Brothers probably like 5 separate times.
I gotta keep my eye out for all the boys then.
Yeah,
I have the entire box set, and I've watched it like 4 or 5 times by now.
Yeah, it's just like we even had some lost references put in there. I mean, originally all of our zones were based off of the numbers and on the hatch and lots. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, inspiration comes from all kinds of places, and it doesn't even have to relate to the actual themes or the genre that we're basing off of.
I mean, but
yeah,
like, oh yeah, let me throw a little bit in, and then everyone else can jump in. Is that like, for instance, I originally had the idea the game was going to be a 4-player co-op game, and it was going to be like a top-down. There was going to be like a bunch of other stuff, and then me and Chris got together, and we were like, let's turn it into an RTS game, because like you figure, when it came down to it, there was one game that we kept coming back to where it's like if it was like Company of Heroes where you could just sit down and you could just lose track of time. Because I mean, when Chris plays that game for probably like sometimes 5 hour binges every couple of days, every couple of weeks, and I play it pretty religiously too. We load up maps and it's like one of those games where you can just jump in and you can lose time, a track of time. It's so fun. And it was like, what if we could take that and apply it to the zombie genre of what Chris is saying in terms of like, hey, like let's see it from a military standpoint of how did it go wrong? Because like that always frustrated me when I saw like all these zombie movies, and I was like, how the fuck did they lose?
Like Fear the Walking Dead season 1 kind of showed the military perspective, but they never really went into like how they just totally screwed up. It's something we wanted to show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're frozen, and that's not in Antarctica. That's usually the northern parts, the tundra. But since we went with the alien virus thing, a lot of actual meteors are found in Antarctica. Since it's such a pristine location to hunt for meteorites, and we brought a lot of that elements from like the movie Annihilation and even Aliens.
Hey, Robert, they're having sound problems. Yeah. Just mentioned we have some slight sound problems.
Oh, there we go. That should be fixed now. The sound from fixed. It's goddamn. I can stop turning off my Yeti. So again, I'll ask the question again. So Efren, when it came down to essentially like you looking at the inspiration for the game and trying to like, it was so hard at the beginning in terms of figuring out like what were we trying to make, what's fun. Where did you fall back onto when it came down to like designing the levels, what games, movies, stuff like and all that?
Well, mainly as far as well, I know that the people in our game aren't zombies; they're infected. But yeah, I guess you could call them that. Uh, I thought a lot about pretty much. What's that one game? It's one of the not Total War, Warhammer. Uh, the one where you land on a planet, you start taking over provinces, and you get bonuses for each province you take over.
Soulstorm?
No, oh, man. I think it had Conquest in the name. But it was one of my favorite Warhammer games. It was pretty much the setting is you go onto a planet and there are different provinces that you can take over, and each province is held by a different faction, and you can go in and start taking over spots, and you get bonuses and garrisons for each province you take over. And that was pretty much one of my favorite. Yeah, Dawn of War. Sorry, shit, Warhammer. Well, I guess it is from the Warhammer universe, but yeah, Dawn of War Conquest campaign. Yeah, that's the one. I played that a lot, and beyond that, I wasn't really a big fan of RTS until we started talking about what we were going to put into this game, and then I was like, this is going to be like Dawn of War, but like zombies and on crack. I mean, like all this, like a lot of the stuff we initially did phase out, and then now I'm seeing that we're starting to put it back in. As far as like, you know, having different units with, upgradable weapons. I remember we had initially scrapped that before, and now we're bringing it back in. And really, like when it came to designing the levels, I think a lot about like how, what places or in like shows like, The Walking Dead could there be in these levels that players can hold and build up a fortress and try to hold back a swarm of infected. Like we have the hospital area, and we have other spots like the baseball stadium, which we're now moving because of, we're going into San Francisco later. And, places like the military base, the radio tower, you have a lighthouse in there, just different little spots here and there that you can create an environment where players can just kind of hunker down, really dig in, build a base, and go all over the map from there. Or, in case they need to pick up and run, they'll have all these other cool little locations where they can fortify and build like a little community, I guess. But yeah, it made me think about a lot of like the Walking Dead, because as far as like the zombie genre goes, I think that's one of my top favorite shows having to do with zombies, and I took a lot of inspiration from that. I know we don't do a lot of visual storytelling as far as bodies and stuff like that, because again, we have to limit a lot of the stuff that renders onto the frame. But as we're finding better ways of doing it, and it's great to be able to do a lot more like before, where we had to set blocking volumes for every little object we put on the map, and it was just like every time I was creating these levels and I was placing another object, it's like, oh my god, that's another blocker I have to place. But then we figured out a way so that we didn't have to worry about that, where these objects could be placed and we didn't have to think about, oh, we're going to have to replace all of, the blocking volumes for these. Now we can just, we have a lot more time to be able to tell, the story visually, and hopefully we can go crazy later on doing blood and bodies and stuff like that. And I don't know, I remember, Rob, I remember once you mentioned there was a way we would be able to kind of change the world as time passes by, like load in a different look to the level. Or, I don't know, once that was brought up in a meeting.
Yes, like that's something that they're adding in Unreal Engine 5, where you can have different level states, where like you can have different things that we could use in different periods of time. In terms of, like, this is like early game version of the map, a mid game phase of the map, and like a late game, and that way we can show more of the devastation that's occurring in the world. And then we also, like, going back to what you've been saying earlier, when we started out, it was kind of like we're building the tech, and then we're also trying to design the game at the same time, and it came down to like us trying to, I guess you could say, innovate and improve our pipeline so that it's easier to building more game. Because like, like what you were saying, where it was like when we started out initially, there was a lot of overhead, and there still is overhead in some areas that we need to eradicate to make it even more efficient to build new levels before we give it out to modders and they're like, able to go gung ho. So, I think there's always that's a good point to make there, in terms of like we're always, trying to find new ways of doing things, and basically, trying to make it simpler to do more like, pretty looking things, I guess you could say. But yeah.
'Cause I like doing like destruction and stuff like that. Like I like putting that blight down, and I want to go crazy with it, but I don't want people going like, it's killing my computer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. So I guess from there then, was there any other inspirations that you had?
Apart from that, a lot of like from the Division, just looking at how levels are trashed or how areas are just deteriorated after, I know we don't do a lot of that in the game, but still, it's worth looking at when you want to like put an area together, and you're thinking of ways like, okay, what could have happened here, and what could I lay down in the level to give people clues as to what went down in this spot,
Yeah,
So,
I get what you mean.
a lot was, looking at like games like the Division, because that's got a lot of like destruction and wear and tear in it.
So speaking about the Division, I know this is a good topic for Ashley to come in terms of basically just the aesthetic. Like, I know we looked at the Division quite a bit. You want to talk about a little about that, Ashley?
Sure. Yeah, we definitely looked at the Division quite a bit, to their walls, the way they did their gates, the way they're like their little cities. We get pull a lot of information from that. Like for example, sorry, I'm put on the spot. I'm always shy.
I'll segue in. Want me to segue in?
Yes, please.
Okay. We looked at the Division quite a bit from when it came down to just like the conflict between the factions. We got some ideas from the anarchists, from that game. We got some ideas of the police, from that game in terms of basically designs, like trying to get some inspiration for some of the art so we can take it and maybe, do our own thing, of course. But use it as like something that, kind of set the bar for what's expected, or like level of detail for factions and units and depth when it comes down to them. I mean, Chris, you want to kind of add a little bit to that in terms of like some of the stuff we looked at for Division?
I mean, you basically covered it. I mean, the Division is just masterful level design and environmental storytelling, and eventually we want to get our levels to that degree of minute little details, and basically as a society crumbles around them. We have our world set up like 3 stages. Right now you see essentially since it's the first week, it's just the normal of the world with dead bodies. As we move into San Francisco, we're going to move into this phase 2, which is going to be more like you would see in real world riots. I think I used the Ukraine riots from a few years ago. There's a lot of reference to that. And the third one will obviously be like you see right there on the Division, where it's just society's now crumbled.
I'm trying to find some of the concept that we got done that shows off some of the different states, because we were discussing that in terms of having the map change like as you played. So like in the beginning there'd be cars, there'd be people walking around, there'd be some amount of normalcy, but there would still be chaos in some of the zones, because you think Chelsea's still spreading and the factions are still starting to be born, and they're starting to rise up. And then at that point, as it got more into mid-game, there wouldn't be as many cars, more things would be on fire, there'd be more environmental storytelling. And then as it went from there, it would segue into like the end game, where it'd be like, okay, if we're able to get to this technically, having more destroyed buildings, and just showing the actual progression in the map, not just in like you playing, you having your direct influences in the world, but also just everyone else, simulating what happens when you left this zone and people were left to their own devices. Are they going to come in and they're going to build? Are they going to are they gonna like take advantage of each other? That was something that we were looking at in terms of Division, in terms of inspiration of like the factions and how they played off of each other. And when you're going into the world, they do things. And that's something that we've kind of tried to stay true to, is that when you're in one part of the world, something is always else going on. Like someone else has a mission. Someone else is trying to expand. And we're trying to basically, keep true to that, and expand upon it, keeping in front of the limited resources that are available to a modern computer, in terms of, hey, like I'm over here doing my own business, and Pierce is trying to ally with these groups, and he's trying to stop this one faction from killing someone that he's protecting, because the idea is that there's going to be dynamic civilian factions, where the idea is that like Sally and Joe might get together and make a group with their cannibals. They might go around and start raiding and killing people randomly. So that'll become a problem for everyone. So you might come through a settlement or a group, and everyone's killed, and you didn't do anything. And you're like, what the fuck happened here? And that's what we're trying to build towards, in terms of that kind of dynamic storytelling where it's like not everything you had to have your hands in the cookie jar to influence. It's like there are other things at play, and you're just one of the players. You know, in terms of basically like the grand world. Obviously, you have the most influence when it comes down to it. But yeah. And then this would be a perfect excuse to segue into some of the concepts that, as Scott was brought on to do the he's doing the anthology right now, and when he wraps that up at the end of the month, he's going to be designing the new faction, which is basically like this anti-CERC type faction. I don't know, did Chris and Scott, did you want to kind of talk about a little bit of some of the stuff we've been discussing behind the scenes and
Well, I only know a teensy bit. Just that these are some very bad mothers who roll around and fight you.
Okay, so maybe more so Chris want to take the lead.
I don't know. We can't go into too much detail. I can tell you that they are called Fenray, and maybe if some of you have followed us for a long time, you know why we're doing that. They are the Anti-CERC. They are a mercenary group, an international one, that is essentially a shadowy organization. Kind of, as I've told Scott, it's like our Diamond Dogs. And I'm really excited to see them brought into the game. I think they kind of shift the perspective of the universe we've built, because we haven't gone too much into it. You know, this is a parallel world to our own, and Fenray was created as a result of the anarchy that rose in the 1990s and 2000s. But they have remained hidden in the shadows. But this is their moment where they're going to step out and basically, you know, they have their own agenda that doesn't align with CERC's, and they're going to get in the way quite a bit. And players who get to play them, or it's going to be a pretty radical thing for them.
Yeah, because when it comes down to them, we're trying to wrap up CERC. So we're trying to, like, year 2, we're trying to get the base building situated, trying to get them their towers, trying to get all the doctrines situated with the core 3 that we have. And then go and work on the Anti-CERC, which will be the other one that you'll be able to play before we even move on to the factions. It'll be this Anti-CERC that has just as much as a primary goal as them, in terms of, like, okay, they're going to have advanced technology. They're going to be able to give CERC a run for their money. And they're going to be more of, like, I guess you could say a comparison of, like, the Wolves from Breakpoint almost, where they're the most elite of the elite. And they're a shadow. They're people talk about them, but they're like
it should be said, they're not bad guys. They're not, you know, Cobra from G.I. Joe, but they're like the totally, like, moral gray, and this is a job for them. They're going to carry out their job no matter what. Once they get a contract, that's it. It doesn't matter if they're butchering children or saving a village. They're going to do their job.
Heroes.
Yeah.
Well, they'll look cool. They'll look very cool.
Oh yeah, they'll look very cool.
cool.
Yeah, because they're going to be the ones that are getting a lot of robots and advanced technologies, because they're going to have to make up for, like, not having it, like, you know, the entire U.S. military backing them. So they're going to have a lot of toys, you know, cloaking, or more, like, stuff that'll make, like, oh wow, like, they're more advanced than CERC in some capacities. So that's kind of the gist of, you know, what we've kind of been working on. Let's throw in a Michael's ring before we wrap it up completely. Michael, so when it comes to the animations, what do you look for? What matters to you? Why do you care?
I would say what matters the most to me is just I look at more of games from, like, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Battlefield. I look for more of the realism aspect, not the flashiness. Especially for, like, instance, some of the weapons are coming out in the 1P. I'm looking as for, like, reference, and Call of Duty for the most part for the reloads and the speeds and just, like, the overall feel, kind of make the gun come to life, honestly, and kind of applying that to the 3P, because we do have a mocap suit coming in, and it will just kind of take off from there because I'll be able to have a lot more control of the movement and fidelity that we're wanting to go for, and also keep that realism aspect in there in terms of like, oh, he's actually, reloading the gun. It's reacting to when he cocks it back, pulls a bolt catch, and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff to look forward to, but that's really what I look for, is just more of the speed, the tacticalness of it, and especially the realism aspect and keeping it balanced across the board.
And for those that don't know, Michael is pretty much, he's the person that does all the weapon balancing. So he pretty much just sits there and puts them in a map and just basically just shoots the infected again and again and checks the resistances. He sets up all the damage. He sets up. I mean, he's pretty much the one kind of advocating for switching from a hit scan to projectile, and making it to where basically we have damage fall off, making it to where when we actually get to the point implementing in first person, we are implementing first person rather, that it will be very weighted and it'll be grounded, and then we'll be able to play with a little more realistic ragdolls in terms of taking the projectile and actually having it influence the character a little bit here and there. So that is something that we're looking into as well, just to kind of experiment with projectiles and see how that works out for the bullets. Grenade launchers and RPGs and all that have already been projectiles. It's only just been the actual traditional bullets where they're hit scan, where there's no travel time, and they immediately reach their destination in a millisecond, and then it simply just checks to see how much time it's traveled for a distance, and then it applies a damage based off of a damage fallout algorithm. So those are all little systems that we're going to be working on. We pretty heavily look at Modern Warfare when it comes down to it, to just kind of set the standard of this is what we kind of needed to try and achieve in terms of the first
especially the hand positioning is definitely kind of what we're looking at too, to kind of make it flesh out more weapons. You have to have a very modular set piece of how going forward, so it can be a lot quicker, because making a model is one thing, but getting it in the game is a whole other process.
Oh, most definitely, because you figure we wrestle with that all the time in terms of basically figuring out the most effective ways to sell 1P, to make it to where it feels right. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that we're dedicated to figuring out the science to it. It's just not as simple as just throwing it all into the engine and it all just comes together. It's a lot of R&D and diligence to test it and figure out the right settings and when to switch things on and off at certain states. But at the end of it,
especially
it's worth it. Sorry, go.
One thing to keep in mind, it's an RTS game at its core. The first person aspect is second. It's not taking away from that. And so with that in mind, how the game is set up, it's set up to play like an RTS, not a 1P. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to, function on, like you were saying, on and off, and kind of getting to work, because it was off by default.
Yes. And you figure it just comes down to balancing those two systems, because when we do find the balance, and when we're able to get it out to you guys, so you guys are able to play it, and you're like, well, this aspect is good, but that aspect is shit, then you figure at that point we just get together and we fix it, So you figure, it's just one of those things where it's gonna be an interesting journey, because the reception we've had so far has been people love the 1P that's been able to play it. It's buggy, but we're working to resolve those bugs and expand upon the feedback that we have heard. At that point, it's just a matter of just keep on trucking until it's fun. You can play in both. You can switch back and forth, and obviously the priority will always be the RTS. But again, like Michael said, it's an option that, let's say for instance you take your operator out into the field, and shit starts to go really bad, and you are really good at first-person shooters. Odds are you'll be able to jump in and help save the day. Just long enough for those strikers to arrive. Because theoretically you could just, bring your operator on your operations, wherever you are on the map, build some strikers, or already have strikers or other helicopters that are, sitting on the map with another team. Order them to go there and immediately drop off and, basically land on the helicopters near you or whatever, however you're playing. Possess your operator when they're on their way. And then at that point, you could help hold out while the reinforcements come that you're sending over. And then obviously most definitely it'll be hard to balance, but I think that it'll be well worth the challenge. Just because something's hard, it's not a reason not to do it. Because if anything, it's more reason to figure it out and do it. To do it. So, that's my spiel on that. So you figure, So I mean, let's see. Anyone else want to kind of throw in the ring in terms of inspiration, ideas for the game, where you got it from? I don't know.
I don't have anything to show you.
Okay. All right. Ashley, anything for you? You want to bring up for anything else? I don't know.
Could just say for like the UI, we looked at Company of Heroes quite a bit, just to see how that game played. We all got together and like played it for about a week, I'm pretty sure, or something like that.
I mean, we played it pretty long.
We played it. You guys play it way more than me, but yeah.
Yeah.
We looked at War Game, Total War Rome 2. There's like a bunch of that.
Yeah, but we're constantly looking at those games too when it comes down
Yeah.
to it to kind of give us, I guess, some pointers on how they did it, and then throw our own little twist on it to experiment with. Because you figure there's always something to learn in terms of basically like, oh, they did it that way, but that won't necessarily work one-to-one to our solution, but we can learn from it and figure out like something else we could do potentially in the future to throw our own little interesting spin on it.
Yeah, game design's never a one-way street.
Yeah, there's always, you figure something's going to work initially, you put it in there, it sounds great on paper, and it's absolute garbage.
Yeah. Okay, we do.
Yeah, and then at that point, it's just like, okay, let's fix it. Let me see what they're asking in chat. Will you ever be able to take control over any other units in 1P? No. That comes down to basically more of a restriction in terms of that would require... I mean, that would require like a lot more animators and a lot more people that we actually have to be able to do it, our capacity of resources. Because you figure all of the characters require special 1P arm rigs. They would require special animations based off of the character, the bodies, and all that. And our compromise was to create the operator. To where basically you were able to, take direct control, but that direct control unit has a very special tool set in terms of like the weapons he can use and how you bring them in so they don't become too OP. Because I mean the operator will be a deciding force. I mean he'll be able to go up to 20 levels in terms of progression. You're gonna be able to level up almost every aspect of how he plays, and for RTS and in first person. You'll be able to bring him into any game that you're playing at any given time. All you have to do is just back out to the main menu, use the operator GUI to create your operator, and at that point, I mean, you'll be able to bring him into your games. So I mean, he's getting his own progression tree. His weapons are getting their own progression tree. So as you get kills and you level up the weapons, you'll be able to use better attachments and better gear on them. And then obviously for the same thing, you'll be able to increase the operator's health. You'll be able to increase how quiet he is when he walks. You'll be able to increase like how effective he is against being infected. There's a whole, there's a better sheet than what I'm explaining right now on the Discord floating around the announcements of all of the upgrades that you'll be able to kind of allocate skill points into as you level him up. Basically. Let's see. So I guess we'll take questions for about like 2 to 3 minutes. Let's see. We'll take a couple questions, and then from there we'll wrap it up. Because we'll end it officially in about 6:05. So is there any questions, any ones that we might have missed that anyone wants to kind of throw towards the development team? They can be on anything.
Make sure they're all asked to Ashley.
Oh yes, make sure there aren't questions, because then we can make her even more shy.
And I'll panic.
And then she'll panic on Mike.
Oh no.
Let me see. So one person is asking, honestly, I hope that they add a bridge layer unit to fix a bridge you destroyed and need there again, instead of relying on Armored Corps Hell to transport units and vehicles. So the engineer can actually repair those bridges that you destroyed. if you move him to the edge of wherever the bridge was destroyed and you right click it, he'll actually repair it. We did talk about that in terms of having the little bridge building unit they have in Modern Warfare 2, I think it was.
Well, they just build.
They just put that metal thing down, right? And then it kind of break. Yeah, but honestly,
we looked at that little tank that has the bridge on top of it.
Yeah.
a while.
I think it ultimately came down to resources at the time that we didn't decide to double down on the bridges because we weren't sure how instrumental they were going to be on the mainland San Francisco map. So like that came down to like we have to kind of figure that out because I'm not really content with how the bridges are handled from a gameplay standpoint because it's really hard to tell where they break. And obviously on top of that, it turns the favor a little too much in the CERC side to where basically it's like Company Heroes where you blow all the bridges and then the infected are just fucked. Like until you repair those bridges, they're just sitting there staring at the bridge like, well, shit, guys.
What if they made a bridge out of themselves?
Oh, I see what you did there. Bridge inception.
Yeah, literally like ants. They like climb on each other's ankles and are like, hold! And like the rest of them just run across their back.
Isn't that from a movie?
No, I'm actually thinking of ants.
World War Z, but bridges instead of ladders.
Wait, wasn't that in Ants?
Yeah.
Maybe? Was it?
I remember a scene from Ants, and I feel like when you said hold, I remember I just had like a flashback, a Vietnam flashback from Ants, and I was like,
I think ants had a Vietnam flashback in it.
but yeah, we're going to tweak the bridges a little bit more going into the future. Let's see.
I like Zeryl's question. You've never been asked that before.
Where is Zero's question? Anything that's not planned right now, but some of the developers would want to see a game. Oh, this question is towards Ashley.
I know.
Ashley, tell us more.
I've been thinking about it. I'm like, what am I going to say? Definitely, I know it's kind of planned to create new types of infected, but I definitely like to see different types of special infected.
I want to see an Abrams and an Osprey, dinosaurs and mechs.
God
Yes.
fucking
Yep.
damn it. The
I
fucking
sent
Transformer
Gundams.
talk again.
Gundams.
God damn. Oh, God. The fucking Gundam talks. Everyone's fucking posting Gundam memes now. Thanks, public Discord.
Ooh.
I forget who made the gun. Someone put a suggestion, like a legitimate suggestion of adding Gundams to our game. And ever since then, everyone on the team's been like, mechs.
That's a cool guy right there. Yeah. I'll first Zombie Bridge, second Gundam.
God fucking damn it. But Dinosaur DLC? Yeah? No. I do love me dinosaurs.
We need our Dominus Rex and have a little laser beam.
Oh, you're gonna have laser people in the Dominus Rex who's going around just like Austin Powers, just lasering people? Like the sharks? I completely agree.
That explode and release smaller infected.
Austin Powers. That's a grandpa movie.
God damn it, Scott. Oh my god. Yeah, I guess it is kind of an old movie. But it's still a classic.
Did the kids watch Austin Powers?
Jesus. You know what? That's actually such a good question. Let's go to the table. So Chris mentioned his. Ashley mentioned his. Anything else for you two? Move on to everyone else.
His what?
Like, what would they want? What's something we haven't implemented that you guys would love to see in the game?
Well, I mean, like, all seriously, like, yeah, I do want to see Abrams in the game eventually, and I want the Osprey. And now that we're expanding the environment, the roads and whatnot.
Okay. Efren?
I like the mortars.
Like the indirect mortars, like the mortar crews, or what do you mean?
Like just having mortars in the game.
Oh, instead of the artillery unit?
Oh no, the artillery's good too. I guess I don't know. For some reason, I was calling it mortars.
I cry every time.
Well, mobile mortar teams would be cool too.
Yeah,
Funny
like
you
remember
mentioned
those guys? You remember those guys in
Funny
Warcraft
you
3?
mentioned that, 'cause me and Chris have been talking about that. About the engineer doctors, giving them like a mobile artillery unit they can drive around. But that'll come. We gotta figure out how it's all gonna affect the balance in terms of you're able to just unload entire neighborhoods with rockets. That's gonna be a little too OP. But maybe. Michael, hit it up. What are you most looking forward to?
Jetpacks.
Okay, seriously though, that jetpack.
No, listen, hear me out.
Oh,
So Finra, right? Yeah, the Star Wars, the Dark Troopers. Come on, man.
Oh, they
Yeah,
fly
dude.
now.
Yeah, they fly now, man.
No flying.
Always fly.
Listen.
We have to do that.
It's just quick spurts. They have like shocks. I don't know.
What?
But in all seriousness, I would like to see smart weapons. No, hold up. Smart weapons.
Okay.
I can't tell.
Titanfall.
Wait,
I was
what?
like, that's so sweet if like they had like fucking springs on the bottom of their shoes and they're like bang, and they like launched over shit.
I need more alcohol.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm drinking the entire bottle of wine after this AMA.
You just launched my imagination right there. I was like,
I
oh,
think
wacky battlefield
on a
this will be.
serious note, though, one of the biggest things I do want to see is not kind of bleeds into what Ashley's talking about, more infected types. So I'd definitely like to see them use like more mutations as weaponry, because right now they just kind of go out and swat at you. I'd like to see them kind of like shoot more projectiles, like actually pose bigger of a threat, like kind of like the night system and like Dying Light, where operating in the nighttime is dangerous but rewarding at the same time. I would definitely like to see that.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. I'll go last because I'm gonna talk forever. So Scott, why don't you go?
What I want to see in the game?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't played the game yet, but yeah.
He's new. He's new. It's okay, everyone.
Zombie Bridges and you guys got an inside man because Gundams.
God fucking damn it.
Oh, I love Gundams. All right, now it's you. You go.
Okay,
What do
wait.
you
Actually,
want most in the game, Robert?
oh no. So wait, was there anything else for you, Michael? Just to make sure.
No, I mean, that's really it. I mean, I definitely want to see everything that's in there expanded upon to make it a lot more immersive.
I got a whole list. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm just gonna keep it bare.
yeah, for me, it's more so about getting in the civilian aspect, so you have more consequences to like if you do go on a killing spree. There's an actual there's a pro and a con of like, hey, these civilians are gonna rebel against you. They're gonna fight you in the cities. And starting to get in those systems because I'm really excited about that, because then again your actions have consequences, and then on top of that, I'm in. Well, let's see what else. I mean, I guess what else besides that that really is not on the list would be, gee whiz, that's a hard one. I mean, to me, it's just the campaign, the story, but that's obviously on the list. It's just not written down anywhere. In terms of I can't wait till we get to the point of actually the story that we have in the anthology, the story we have in the novelization. We can actually laser in on that and adapt it to the game and do the actual scripting to show you guys some of the ideas that we have for some of these really good characters that me and Chris have been talking about for years, and we're like, fuck, when do people get to experience these the way we're thinking about it in our heads in terms of the story. Kaiju mode.
Indeed.
Well, that's not fair. Those are already gonna be there. You got to have something crazy.
I don't have anything crazy. Fuck you guys.
What about your cat? You could have your cat in the game.
No, what the fuck? No, my cat's already crazy as is. He's always biting me on my ankles right now as we speak.
Now he wants infected snitches.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Sick.
They're over here.
What's happening? Let's see.
The only thing Robert really cares about is waifus.
Oh, and waifu armor.
That's what you want in the game more than anything.
Yes,
Well,
he knows me so well. I always buy the waifu armor in every game we play. Don't judge me. God.
Not too hardly, I guess.
Even Ashley thought it was funny. She had to giggle. She was just like, "That's so Robert."
I did. It's so Robert.
I cry. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Any other good questions you guys see in the mortar infection pods? That is something we're talking about. Is spores or anti-air stuff. So that comes down to once we get the current onset of stuff caught up for the factions, for the infection system and all that, we're gonna start to really have some fun with the new faction, with the Anti-CERC. And then the infected, doubling down on them, getting some more creatures designed, like what Michael's saying. we did have a design for like this like Chelsea's Elite Guard, which was like this like it was inspired from those creatures from Resident Evil 4, the one that had those like symbiotes in them where you had to shoot them with the thermal, and they were like
Generator.
They were generators. Like we had some really cool like art that was inspired off of them that we've shown on Discord every once in a while, and like we're gonna go that route, or like we need to actually resurrect that design, finalize it, and actually have like this unit that's kind of like Chelsea's Elite Guard, but also they hunt you at night. Because, like, the idea was this night was supposed to be devastating. Night was supposed to be like, oh, shit, I gotta get these guys out of here because I'm gonna get destroyed. Like, they're more active at night. They're gonna be, like, they're more active at night was the idea. And on top of that, you know, when you get to a certain point in the game, they're gonna own so much of the city that sometimes you're operating in enemy territory in terms of, like, when you're trying to sneak around. And... you know all that other stuff. So like that's a big thing driving force there is making the night something you fear in terms of like I gotta get a helicopter over there, I gotta put the silencers on, I gotta hide them in an alley, I need to get a team out there or like someone that can get out there really quickly, get them out, get them back to base, and wait till nighttime is over. And then to give the incentives of wanting to go out at night, give them special bounties, which is that bounty thing that we have on the roadmap. Where, like, you know, there's more incentives to go out at night. Give them mini missions that only occur at night. So then that way you're incentivized to take that risk for that just a little bit more cash to basically get you through the day. For that kind of thing if you're cash strapped. Because we're always balancing the money and kind of trying to figure out the balance. And that's something that we're talking about in terms of, like, year 2 is going to be it's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot coming in a very short period of time, you know, by the end of the year in terms of just kind of tidying up the bolts and, you know, getting everything more presentable, you know, getting everything ready for the conversion to Unreal Engine 5. Because at that point, it's going to push us to innovate and get better fidelity in the levels. And then, not to mention, redo some assets and clean up some assets just to make sure that the conversion goes cleanly so there's no performance issues. I think that's pretty much it for questions.
I see one more question actually.
What?
Hey Robert, what if your cat was in the game?
God damn it! Where's my cat? My cat is hiding somewhere. I don't even know where he is. He's probably mad at me because I haven't given him attention since I got home.
Catnip Browns.
We need to put Gemma in the game.
Yeah, Gemma is going to... But then the zombies will eat her like that dog from that one movie.
Well, no, she's invincible.
Oh,
She
no.
carries me for you.
Oh, yeah, huh?
And bites your feet.
Oh, that's true. Well, I think we're going to end it there. We've had about an hour and 16-minute AM, really not really an AMA, more of a podcast. We'll kind of see, I guess we're going to kind of experiment with this and see if it's going to be a weekly or a bi-weekly thing. So that way we have enough stuff to talk about. The idea is every week is going to have a different topic of discussion. In terms of next week, we'll probably talk more about RTS games. Like what was the first RTS games we played? You know, maybe we talk about what happened that week. I mean, it's going to be kind of like every week will be a different topic, and we'll kind of play with it and kind of find a balance. Because again, this is the first time we're doing it for a lot of us, but we think it'll be a fun little interaction between the developers, which in some cases they get them to not be so shy and shove them to the front of the shelf. In terms of like, hey, talk to the people that want to talk to you. In terms of like, hey, look, like these guys have really cool ideas, and they just want to, you know, shoot the shit with the team. You guys can, you know.
You have a favorite RTS, Ashley?
Yeah, Ashley, what's your favorite RTS?
And just say yes. You have to. If you do, then you got to save it for next week because that's when the talk.
See, oh no.
You're supposed to say your favorite is Cepheus Protocol.
Yeah, you're supposed to say your favorite is Zephyrus. You're so bad at shilling your own project. You're like, my favorite RTS is Zephyrus Protocol. Buy it
That's
right
why
now on Steam.
And
That's why I give my kids Zephyrus Protocol.
Oh my god. I love that fucking meme.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's a good point to end it. Thank you guys for tuning in, And you guys have a good night or morning or wherever it is geographically.